Hey, Dustin. First off, congrats on the 300th goal last night. Have you had any time to reflect on that, and is there any importance of that milestone for you individually?
It's something I'm proud of. I actually didn't even know until after the game because I assumed that Juice had gotten a stick on it, just the way the play happened. But I think Elias congratulated me after the game. I didn't know what he was congratulating me for, so that's kind of how I found out. But I guess if you play long enough, you can eventually get to any milestone.
See, the guys in this franchise who have hit the same feat. Does that make it a little bit more special to see your name up there? With Luke Robitaille and Kopi and a few other guys who have meant so much to the Kings as you have.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the players before you that had gotten to those milestones. I think one of my best friends texted me that was the 22nd American to get there. So that was kind of one I didn't know about. And again, it's just like I said, you play long enough, you can get to certain milestones.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Next up is Dennis Bernstein.
Dustin, how'd you feel playing 1843 after 10 months of not being on the ice? 10 months of not being on the ice.
Pardon? I couldn't hear that.
Okay. How'd you feel about playing 1843 last night after not playing for 10 months?
I felt really good. Like condition wise, I felt actually pretty good. My body felt good. The biggest challenge is not having we've been playing with guys the last couple of weeks that are coming at you but not going through you, and that was probably the one difference. So a lot of those little plays that I normally make coming in out of the zone, getting it to Kopi on his tape, those are the types of things that were more of a struggle. There's some fatigue set in that maybe late in the game, but I mean, after 10 months, I felt pretty good.
And then the experience of playing at Staples Center, crowd noise pumped in, music, but no fans.
I think you notice it more in the timeouts, the TV timeouts, where once the game starts, I wasn't sure really how it was going to be because I never experienced it. But once the actual hockey game's on, it wasn't too much of a difference. I think the only time it's a huge difference is when goals are scored because there's obviously no fans and you can actually hear the players celebrating. So it's a different thing, but it's not too hard to adjust to.
Thanks, 23.
Next up, Lisa Dolman.
Dustin, are your kids at the age where they're really starting to appreciate what you do, but are they just kids going through their life and they're like, yeah, Dad's job is cool? I mean, how much does all this resonate with them?
It's kind of a bit of both. They just don't think I'm very good, so that's the funny part, I guess, for me is especially my oldest. He's a pretty big hockey player himself, and he understands it all, but he just doesn't think I'm that good compared to all the other players in the NHL.
Okay, that's pretty good. Just secondly, different guys use different things to stay in shape during the pause. I know you're a tennis player. Did you play a lot of tennis? Was that something you were able to do in addition to the usual stuff?
No, I didn't. I just did my traditional training, quite honestly. I just stretched it out a little further. Probably the one difference was just getting on the ice more, and through quarantine, it was actually kind of a great family thing back home is I'd just go on the ice with my kids for an hour and do work for 30 minutes, and then we would just screw around out there. So that was probably the only real difference in my training. We actually played zero tennis, which is kind of normally in a regular year, we'll probably play tennis every once in a while. And I don't know, for whatever reason, we just didn't even think about it.
And was that a rink in Ithaca where you guys were?
Yeah, there was the local rink there. Yeah, we would just go up. The guy who runs the rink was my Pee Wee coach, so it was just kind of find some time for the ice, and it was something I've been able to do with my kids, so it's been fun.
Cool, thank you very much.
Next up is John Hoven.
Well, sorry in advance, Dustin, because my questions probably won't bring the same smiles that Lisa's did, but just any comments about the drop pass?
Yeah, it was, at 3-on-3, I got the puck from Dewey, and I just, I had 3 guys above me, so I think I dropped it back just in a really awkward spot. I knew Dewey was behind me. He was further behind me than I had thought, and ends up in our net. So, I mean, it's one of those I'd like to take back, but you got to live with it.
There were a lot of extra minutes spent on the penalty kill last night. It's something that Todd addressed also in his post-game press conference. I'm just wondering if you think for some guys, possibly like Drew, that fatigue might have been a factor that played into what happened there in overtime.
I think for the whole group, I mean, it's 10 months for a lot of guys. And, yeah, we played a couple inter-squad games and one black-white game, but there's nothing like the real thing when you got guys going through you. But everyone's kind of in the same boat. So I think that's kind of like a equal playing ground. I mean, both teams are probably tired. It's just something we got to address early on in the year once we get our legs going and get more into a rhythm of a normal year. I think it's like a week or so. I think it'll actually, quite honestly, today even felt a little more normal. Just the whole game, day off, practice. The fatigue we'll get our conditioning where it needs to be.
And then the last one, just Kopi said last night that he's looking forward to playing Minnesota again on Saturday, which is, it's not quite the same atmosphere as the playoffs, but it does build some rhythm playing the same team on back-to-back nights like you're going to be doing this year. Just curious if you shared some similar thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting idea. I think you'll get a lot more interesting games when you play teams back-to-back just because there's a little bit more carryover, whereas in a normal year, it's very rare that you play this. I mean, we've done it with Anaheim, I guess, a couple times, but I think it's going to be pretty regular this year where you're playing teams multiple games in a row. So I think there's going to be a lot more holdovers from previous games against all opponents, especially the ones that we have traditionally had battles against.
Thanks, Brady.
Next up is Jack Harris.
Dustin, where do you think the power play has improved most from where you guys were last year?
Well, last year we switched a lot in our game in the power play, and I think we worked really good. Last year we made a huge improvement on our break-ins, and I think that's been a really good early on this year, at least in the one game. And now that we have the break-in and kind of have our setups, and we worked on a few different ideas last year, and now we've added a few more elements. And I think the more we work on it, the better and more confident we get as a group of guys on the ice. And it's growing it from going back to last year. We're just adding a few more details, a few more, not hard rules, but just plays we can run out of different situations. And the more we do that, I think the more it will become natural to all the players on the ice. So it's definitely a different setup. We got a lot of different options for the half wall guys and the top guy, which is exactly what we want.
And then, given this year and the way the schedule and the standings are going to work, playing all the same teams, I mean, those 1 point, OT shootout losses, are those going to feel different, maybe more like a point loss, just because that in all those games you're going up against teams and maybe giving a point away to teams that you're directly competing against compared to maybe a normal season or schedule?
Yeah, I mean, the format now, I think, forces teams to try to get 2 points in regulation, to be honest with you. As the year goes on, points accumulate, and you're only playing the same 7 teams every game, it's going to be a super I think there's going to be a cluster of teams that is just the way it's designed. It's overtime losses they're big, huge losses now, where sometimes there's in years past where you just sneak a point in, not that you're content with losing in overtime, but you look at it as a positive, and it might be viewed a little differently as this season progresses. Overtime losses might, quite honestly, feel just as bad as a regular regulation loss.